So you're going to get a big bite-sized chunk of information tonight about the schedule, about the actual rezoning proposal, and the focus is to kickstart community conversation about it. Our zoning code requires that before a formal submittal comes in, there needs to be a neighborhood meeting to listen to the neighbors. We don't have a formal submittal yet. I anticipate, this is important, I anticipate a formal submittal in the next week. When the town receives that formal submittal, it will be posted on the town website. So after that description of the rezoning proposal, the next step will be opening up to you folks for discussion. So those of you that attended the general plan meetings, the typical way we do this is to head around the room, okay? My ask is raising hands. Please don't speak over each other. If you're going to say the same thing as your neighbor, I would love it. I think everyone would love it if you'd say ditto. So it's not repetition. So I want to touch the history back part is, I want to go way, way back. I want to talk about what's happened in the past year. Again, reiterate where we are right now in the process, and then talk about the future over the next couple of months of additional neighborhood meetings to discuss the proposal. Okay. The way back part, because I've heard this question many, many times. Why is this even on the radar? Did state land come down here and say, Oro Valley, you got to do this? Did Oro Valley court state land to do this? I want to answer that and where the root of that is in terms of history. So, general plans. A general plan, the short version, is a policy document that's developed and voted on in the community. That's unique to Arizona. The last 4 general plans since 1990 have all stipulated work with state land. Work with state land to effectuate management of growth. State land has a charge to sell their property to the highest bidder relative to growth. So the community has made an overt commitment to be at the table. And the want from the town's perspective has been to have control to make sure that growth occurs in a managed way. We're going to figure out what the heck that means over this neighborhood meeting process. Okay? So this is a partnership between the town and state land. It's been in my planning division's work plan, which is approved by town council, for the last 10 years. Different versions of the work plan over the past 10 years, actually 11 years, spanning different versions of council, different iterations of council members over that time to work on these types of projects with state land. That's where the direction has been consistent. So the town approached state land and asked that we want to work with you relative to how you are planning growth in this area. And that's how the conversation started. And it brings us forward to where we are today. So coming back to a little bit about where we've been over the past year and a half, so, because that's really when things started to move in earnest toward planning. So some year ago, and Mr. Spade is going to take a deeper dive, we reached out to state land to work on a general plan amendment. Okay? The property was already in the, part of the property, not all of it, part of the property was already in our planning boundary in our general plan. All of the property, all 800 acres, was in our provide service zone within our general plan. Okay? Those things were all in place. So we met with State Land, we conducted 2 neighborhood meetings. I don't remember if it was a third, but Mr. Spaeth is going to go deeper on that. And out of that came an understanding from the folks that participated what a lot of the core issues are. That general plan amendment was approved by council with what's called special area policies that spec out, these are things this rezoning, when it goes forward, absolutely have to achieve. Okay, and again, Mr. Spaeth is going to go through those. After that general plan amendment, we met with State Land and started the process to look at, well, then what would zoning look like? So we started working collaboratively. Staff has seen multiple concepts and multiple drafts, okay, as part of their pre-application. We've provided high-level feedback. Again, we don't have a formal submittal yet, but we have seen concepts and we started shaping what it should look like. We still have a long road to go. We don't yet today, bringing us to today. Today, State Land is still working on that draft, still working on the formal submittal. And again, I anticipate getting that next week. Okay. So tonight, it's important to explain that drafty part because there will be some questions tonight where staff's response is going to be, I don't know. It's because we don't have all the information yet. We do know a lot of things, and we're going to share with you what we know. Okay, so we're going to be learning along with some of you as far as what's the latest as far as what State Land is working on. All right, the most important part. Where are we going from here? So this is a quick layout of 2 separate things. They are separate, but they're related. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So we have 2 separate items, an annexation proposal, as well as a rezoning. Okay? So in terms of what they mean and in terms of what action council takes, they are distinct. Where they come together is that they are on the same review track. So what do I mean by that? So when the rezoning is ready to go to Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Council for a vote, the annexation is going to be on the same agenda. So they're going to track the same. One's not going to go before the other. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the process for both quickly. So annexation. A few folks came up to me before the meeting and asked a few things about annexation, and it made me realize that I haven't done a good job in the past in explaining what annexation is. What annexation means and doesn't mean is pretty darn important. Annexation means that it's about expanding the town boundaries. Expanding the town boundaries. It's about providing services within those boundaries. When you annex, you have to provide services in that area. It also sets up who controls the land in terms of zoning, taxation, et cetera, et cetera. You're part of the community. A very common misunderstanding, and I've heard it a lot during the general plan amendment process, and I heard it tonight several more times. Annexation does not mean change of ownership. Okay? It does not mean change of ownership. State Land owns the property right now. If, keyword is if it is annexed by town council, ownership does not change. Okay? The town of Ore Valley is not buying the property. Okay? That's not what annexation is for, to set up a town purchase of the property. So you will get an explanation of who will be interested and who do they market the property to, but it's not the town. Okay? Thanks for bearing with me. I just know that is a common misunderstanding. All right? So, what annexation involves, where we are today with annexation, is in August, the town filed paperwork with Pima County to start the annexation process. Simply filing paperwork at the recorder's. This is stipulated by state law in terms of process. The next step, how many of you noticed the white signs that went up a day or so ago on the property? So there are white signs and there are yellow signs. The white signs have to do with annexation. On September 19th, there'll be a public hearing for town council. So please hear me, this is what it is and isn't at that hearing. It is a hearing where the purpose of annexation, the process of annexation is going to get explained further. And it's an opportunity to receive public comment from all of you about the annexation. Not so much the rezoning, but the annexation. By state law, please hear me, by state law, a vote can't happen at that meeting. A vote is not going to happen at that meeting. Absolutely not. The vote for an annexation will occur at which point the rezoning is ready to go in terms of Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Council review. Now I'm going to switch over to rezoning and go through where we are and where we're going. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, the first two meetings, there's one next week, Thursday, are all about introducing the project. After September, there's going to be a series of what we're calling focus group meetings that will span the month of October. Okay? What on earth is a focus meeting? The idea is to, a lot of you want to know what's going to happen right next door to you. Maybe you're not so interested in what's going on in terms of the neighbor 2 miles away, or less interested. You really want to know what's going on with that drainage area, that wash that's right next to your house. We're going to set up a series of focus meetings that are geographically based. You'll be invited if you're in that region, where you get the opportunity in a lot less formal setting than this to ask specific questions about what's going on near your house. Okay? Through the month of October, after the focus meetings, the idea is for staff to work with state land, look at what types of revisions into the document that should be made. I have never worked on a rezoning in Oro Valley over the last 19 years where the neighbors did not have specific impact and changes to a rezoning proposal. Never. Whether it's setbacks, it's building heights, there are always different angles and discussions as part of rezonings. They all morph because of neighborhood meetings. Okay? The outcome may not please everyone in terms of whether there's a yes or no vote, but they all morph because of neighborhood meetings. After all the focus group meetings, we anticipate a resubmittal from the state. The idea is perhaps in a bigger room, we're going to have another one of these neighborhood meetings to show what happened at the focus group meetings. Everyone's welcome to attend all of the focus meetings if they want. But the idea is to bring everybody back together, show what we learned, and how it has morphed, the proposal. At that point, come December, that is going to take us into December. Another very common question and ask I'm getting on the phone is, which version of council is this going before? The unequivocal answer, because of this timing, is the future version of the council after November. Did everybody hear what I just said? Very good. I'm glad that means you heard me. Very good. All right, so how on earth are we going to decide whether it's ready or not to go to commission and council? My best estimate is that that really is not going to occur until we hit the January, February timeframe. I can't commit tonight to when those meetings are going to be. Two things need to happen. One is that there has to be due diligence, the staff and the applicant, in terms of making sure all of you've been heard. It doesn't mean our aim is to make everybody happy. That just doesn't happen in development proposals. But is it getting somewhere, or at least being responsive to what concerns are being raised? It's not up to staff to decide to approve or deny an annexation or rezoning. That's your elected officials. All right, so that's standard one. Standard two is it's got to meet code requirements. Code requirements about making sure there's ample information on drainage, traffic, layout of the properties, etc., etc. Those two things at a minimum need to happen before we set a date. And you will all get advance notice of that date. Okay? Thank you. Mike's reminding me that I need to speed it up.
Yes.
All right.